Blessed love and peace. So we're back at it. Just arriving back from teens and blessings, with all thanks and praise to the Most High. So something that guided to share before that I'm sharing now is um, the actual. To be honest, there was an intention of me visiting some kinfolk today amidst the things, but it's somewhat out of the repertoire, and as things get on this joint, it becomes off of the schedule. So, because of that, and amidst that, there was actually already the intention of holding off on visiting kinfolk even before getting enveloped in this recording. And instead of talking to kinfolk directly, just saying it here, since we're saying so much here at this on this platform and whatever else, amidst the block being hot and otherwise. And the block's been hot. It's actually quasi warm. It's cooled off in many ways, even within the past week. But it's still like there can be the calm before the storm and everything else like that. So we've always got to be mindful, and at the same time be honest within ourselves and recognize when we walk with God, come what may. And that's not an ego bravado type of thing. That's just that's a necessity. That's the coping mechanism, because we can't be stressed on worrying about everything that might happen and could happen, all the angles. At some point, we have to just give it to God and just be to like have peace in our heart that we're doing in our what we believe in our heart to the utmost is what we're supposed to be doing, and whatever happens, we live and we sleep in peace accordingly, because we're doing our best, and we make amends when we make errors or too distant estimations. So, all right. That being said, the things that we had to share with kinfolk, and that we have to share with kinfolk, and there's still the propensity of speaking this in direct, but at the moment, like I said, this is not the priority. Our priority is homestead, and that is not secure. Obviously, you can see first of all just the circumstances here that I've described, and additionally, and then you see what's happening outside. That's a daily thing. It crossed the line a couple of days ago, but that's not the first time, and they're chronic proddings. I mean, just the society itself is a matter of provocation to each other on a daily basis. Walking through the streets of New York City, it's a culture of provocation and disrespect towards each other. It's just that many people, just have one thick coat of skin just to like brush it off and desensitize from that kind of like humanity. We won't call it humanity. We'll call it congeniality and just like altruism and benevolence, and just like go in with their armor on already. That one thing, and then also have their weapons ready, whether it's a nasty word back or vulgarity or otherwise, but not having a strict restrictions about piety and what can be done, what cannot be done, and the necessity of, because of that, being further proactive and responsive to microaggressions or hints and otherwise. We don't respond to kicking up dust and just blanket insults or whatever. We have to brush a lot of things off. Recognize again, kinfolks are out of themselves. The kinfolks are chained and struggling and wrestling to do the best they can. So we gotta be mindful of that and have patience, not accepting it, but have patience and not just revert to every kind of like insult or whatever that we experience in life when walking throughout. But when it's our homestead, we do have a directive and a commandment and an obligation to be further formidable and standing on our own too. So that's what that is. That's what this is. All right. So all that being communicated, what we had to share with the kinfolk. All right. Basic is very simple. It's very heavy, but it's very simple. Now, there's a specific context with certain kinfolk because of what is on the schedule of studies at this moment that involves rebellion and temptation, and the consequences of that. So along those lines, with certain kinfolk who are in that mindset, particularly this week with this schedule of holy scriptures that are being read, but this is shared with all kinfolk, and some perhaps further and further significantly than others, but it's basically this. And we're talking to our orthodox kinfolk. We're talking to our practitioners. We're talking to our thoroughbred, disciplined, don't mess with outsider kinfolk. The anchor of communities and diversity. This is who we're speaking to, and is this. First, the preface is this: we need you. We need you. So this is a very difficult question. I've already spoken to it, but this is what we prepared to say in person. At this point, we have to say here. We'll see what God wills in terms of saying in person. But to soften what we have to say, we begin by saying we need you. To be affirmative and understand the context, to recognize the context this is being communicated. We need you. Not only that, we need you to be you. We need you to be you. Jewish, Muslim, Christian, Buddhist, Hindu, Tao, Native, Baha'i, Sikh, African, European. We need you to be you. Each one. We need you to be you. Now, with that being said, this is for the Orthodox. This is for the hardcore. Are you an American citizen? Plain and simple. First things first. Are you an American citizen? And if so, why? To recognize the nature of a republic, and as a citizen within the republic, to recognize one's ownness, one's responsibility, one's accountability, one's culpability, one's guilt in all of the actions of the republic. There's no shirking that. So as a religious practitioner, as a believer, as an orthodox, strict, don't mess with outsiders believer on this land, if it is the case, why are you an American citizen? And that's not accusatory. We have an understanding of what the rationalities are. Or the further question perhaps is, why are you still an American citizen? Why don't you let that go? Further question, how can you let that go? Are you willing to let that go? Are you ready to let that go? Will you let that go? We need you to be you. The American citizen is not you. If you are claiming to be a believer, the American citizen is not a believer. Christian, Muslim, Buddhist, Jewish, Hindu, the American citizen is not you. Hardcore, earnest, honest believer. American citizenship is not you. Are you ready to let that go? We need you. We need you. Because without you, we have to find others. Plain and simple. It's been that way for thousands of years. When the children of the believers lose the ways, kinfolk have to find others. And then when the children in generations later wake up and find themselves, then blame those others for doing it differently. We need you to be you. And there's well, I won't get into the whole doomsday type situation, but you already know what the conditions are, and you know what the honesty is. So the question is, are you ready to let that go and build accordingly? You already know. You already know. It doesn't have to be explained to you. Don't have to say anything. Don't have to reason about it. Don't have to explain it. You know better than we do what we're saying. And we need you to be you. All right, that's it. Just received this book from seeing it shared. It arrives today. There's a Beatles song about something arriving in the mail, or somebody else's song. Anyways, now this has fewer photographs than I was anticipating, because the brethren was talking about it as a significant paragraph. So, Johnny Pitts, blessings. Now, to be honest, the enthusiasm is somewhat tempered, because we see a lot of what he's talking about today being comparatively political, and we're concerned about that. Now, it's different than in Europe and England and the Britain, it's still part of the empire, imperialism, but it's very different than the nature of the imperialism within the United States, because it's still founded in some semblance of indigeneity, perhaps less so in England and perhaps in Deutschland or otherwise, but still there's still some credible experience and premise of indigeneity. So the politics has still relevance. What mixed people's position is in the juxtaposition of like the native nationalism that's anti-foreigner, and other elements of like the ultra liberal LGBTQ, and additionally um, there's a considerable distinction between those that spectrum and the balance there than within the United States. But all that being said, to identify like what is there a general favorable position within the politics for ourselves? We're out of the system categorically. We're out of democracy. We're out of that. We're out of citizenship as a categorically. That we don't advocate for that for everybody. But I mean, I just called that out right there. That same criticism towards American citizenship applies to world citizenship itself, the democracy itself. We abstain from, I can't. We used to abstain from advocating downfall or downthrow or whatever, overthrow, because that's just a different form of authoritarianism and folly. The word I see in the book, just looking through it. So that we're not trying to do like conquering. It's just distancing from imperialism. So again, when we talk about now, and then Afropean is a very distinct, Black Europe is a distinct experience than necessarily mixed race, because Afropean includes all kinfolk of African ancestry in Europe, which is it's a beautiful thing, actually. It's a beautiful concept, but at the same time, that draws lines within the experience of mixed heritage, because that's different from the the Indo-European kinfolk from India, who are the mixed heritage from India and England or otherwise, which may constitute an increasing percentage of the mixed population and population in England, Indo-Chinese, the Anglo-Chinese, and additionally. And so if this is where the lines are drawn in terms of being of African ancestry, how does that affect and influence the relationship between other types of mixed heritage in the omni context that we are part of? And so we're not hating on the bilateral and those lines being drawn, but we're just about being clear about it so we can be honest in our communication. Because even when we draw those lines and we say, you know what, this is our political platform, we can't like align with y'all too tough or whatever, fine. Do we have some type of availability to build and cooperate? Can we agree on certain things, or can we connect on certain things? Because if you're able to connect with a monoculture, and you're including that within your lines, and that's the thing, like a lot of people kind of like get very sedity when working with other types of ethnic communities, but at the same time, like just like, but we have to be mainstream, so we'll make excuses, or this is the pragmatic aspect. No, that's what we're talking about. The whole thing is on the table. And so just working at the job and working for Europeans, as the understood escape clause or whatever of the racial solidarity lines, it's like, no, that's not how it is. We can pretend. All right, I'm not going to get off on that tirade or whatever, but that's the thing. Just let's be honest about our intentions and what we find, as we're still finding it and finding our homeostasis, mixed stasis, whatever. Yeah, I know, Sparrows. It's a little bit early still. We still got sunshine. So that's what this is, because it's a beautiful thing. That concept, that experience of just identifying as being of African ancestry, and that resonance when we see the programming of the African kinfolk who are not mixed, or who don't acknowledge or don't identify or whatever, but at the same time, it doesn't matter. We can all kind of connect with that on the basis of having that shared ancestry. That's a beautiful thing. That's an awesome thing. And when the sisters build from that, are inspired and go on their own tour and make the music and poetry from that, that's exactly what we're talking about. And so we don't discourage it. We support that experience. And who are we to support it or not? But just to be clear about that. But at the same time, we do recognize at the same time there's kinfolk who are Indian European mixed, passing for white, and have a lot of quote unquote privileges or favors, and thus have certain aversions toward even associating with mixed race African Europeans, because in that passing kind of environment, that's a liability, that's a scrutiny, it's grounds for stigmatization and ostracization and separation. So if this is where lines are being drawn, is there anything specific officially being done along those lines? And then what happens to people who are Afro-Indian or all a combination? Because as I said before, we know as being mixed, the lines are not just necessarily arbitrary, but the lines are contrived, and they're not set in stone. How about that? So, and if they were, then the stones are subject to change and carving, further carvings, and otherwise. Ask the runes. So it's we know lines are necessary in life. The consideration is advancing the discussion. So, anyways, still have yet to read this. It has much further words than was expected, but he's a writer, so that should have been understood or otherwise. I think I saw the advertisements for it or the promos for it, and it was just a lot of photographs, and it looked like a picture book with like just blurbs. But this is fine, and just again paging through, we see like a narrative of Alexander Pushkin, and like it looked like it was going into some of the detailed history about his background, Abyssinia or Cameroon and otherwise. So that we appreciate that, and that's the type of conversation that we're talking about. So again, kudos and good on you to brother Pitts, and this is actually this past year I probably acquired the most number of books that are completed within the past century than I have in probably the past 20 years, probably. Other than like textbooks about world religions, along those lines. But in terms of just like general reading of contemporary writers, I think I've acquired 4 books or thereabouts in the past year. Generally speaking, purchase at least, because we don't do money too tough. So it's in things. So this is one of the books. Afropean is the one we just acquired. Just receiving that, so I've yet to read it. This was the most recent book before that, which is. Does it have a title here? Does it have a title here? No. Let My Nation Begin is what it's called. Wow. How about, let's turn the right side up. The gray on here is covering up a very flowery, effeminate book covering. Here we go. Have the author. We'll show the author. It is a rabbi. So the purpose for this is reading further into Abraham Avinu, his life before arriving in the land of Canaan, dealing with Nimrod and otherwise. So that's the primary purpose of reading that book. So that's one book. The other book that we acquire is actually gifted to dear kinfolk in the past year, and that book is called Makeda. That is written by my former boss of blessed memory, who passes in this past year, who returns with our ancestors. He writes the book Makeda. I acquire his first book, which is it wasn't The Debt. It was what's it called? His first book. Wow. His first book. His name is Randall Robinson. His second book is called The Debt, and that's when I worked for him at Transafrica Forum. The first book. Wow. It talks about his work in during the anti-apartheid movement, additionally. So, wow. And that's, like I said, in the past few years, we give away a lot of things. What remains and what is held, much of it was in the luggage that was taken in the past recent months. So there's no excuse for me not remembering it at the moment, but that's anyways the first book. So he wrote another book this past, he wrote the Makeda was written a number of years ago, but I just found out about it when I hear about him passing from the earth. So then I go out and purchase the book, and I begin reading it. To be honest, I have yet to finish reading it, but I did give it to kinfolk who do complete it and appreciate it. And it's a fictional, and I don't do fiction too tough, but it's fiction based on history, and it's a retelling of the narrative of Nigisiti Makeda, the mother of Menelik. Queen Sheba is who we're talking about. So, anyways, though there are very few books that are written in the past century that I acquired. The one that I acquired online, I guess I have yet to pay, and people can fault me for that. Brethren and sisters can fault me for that. But it's the autobiography of His Majesty Haile Selassie I. That was a matter of like having it as soon as possible and having a digital version of it and printing it out so that I can read it during Shabbat. I do finish reading that, and that is a resource at this point, and it's included within our regular studies. So, point is, we don't read too tough about things in the past century. So to acquire this one, actually, to be honest, to acquire this is very specific, and particularly because this type of text also has citations to traditional readings, traditional references. So that's part of the considerable value in purchasing that. And then this one is the unique experience from the mixed heritage, and we see some deep dive in terms of the discussion, and particularly there are a number of things that are very resonant about this project with having yet to read it. But just the notion of traveling with the idea of community and trying to find the locations in Europe where there are African people and what the scene is like, what the people are like, and then talk about that and the intention of building network, of intention of other people visiting and having the conversations and building further the relationship. So that's part of the intentionality. The fact that Brother Pitts is a family man with children, so that provides further stability and credibility within the works. Again, there may be differentiation concerning politics, different emphases, and additionally, but there's we look for common ground and emphasize that amidst all the intermediaries in the cyber realm of communication. So, anyways, that's where things are with this. So that's where things are, and as we continue with emphasis on the home front, marriage, children, family, village, God. As we work on our negotiations and further arrangements concerning land and shelter and resources, and additionally, amidst our discipline and protocols, one suggestion that is recently shared is guiding our efforts in a specific context of doing quote-unquote missionary work. So it's not Christian missionary work. The missionary work is going out to convert mixed people into being mixed people. So regardless of what people's religiosity is, Christian, Muslim, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhist, Baha'i, otherwise, cultivating a methodology and a first like a home base, a village to reside in, and then establishing a school that teaches kinfolk how to be mixed race missionaries towards mixed people, and what that basically means is teaching world literacy, having a program to teach world literacy, knowing about world civilization, knowing about these narratives. How many times I'm going to say Alexander Pushkin in this week? But having that literacy, and with that literacy, having that sense of peace and confidence, the sparrows are stacking up today. All right, and that's a blessing. We give thanks to the Most High for the life and the energy, the flight and the inspiration. Come on, sparrows, what's happening? So, mixed people to be mixed people. Not to convert to a specific group of spirituality, but a world literacy, to be knowledgeable about self, to be confident about self, peace in self, to continue in whatever vocation kinfolk are, but not to be unduly leveraged, not to be just acquiesce and be a slave to anything, whether it's a high-paid doctor or engineer slave or professor slave or otherwise, but to be genuinely mixed heritage, much like like being a genuine Orthodox Muslim or Orthodox Jew or Orthodox Christian in these different spheres, who is acknowledged and supported in the conventional, in the mainstream culture for being such, and then is supported materially, economically, spiritually, socially, politically, and thoroughly for being mixed, rather than just being left dolo style and dangling and isolated. So that is maintained through a solidness, and it's not a defensiveness, it's not an insecurity, it's not an overcompensation. It's just a solid knowledge, like, yo, we have gifts to share. Are you ready for it? We know how to share. Are you ready for it? That's what we're talking about, regardless of what the profession is, and every society valuing that for it, and saying, okay, yeah, we respect you. Okay, yeah, you can be you. And yet we know where your home base is, and this and the other. And that's whether kinfolk are bilaterally mixed, multilaterally mixed, omnilaterally mixed, or otherwise, or assimilated mixed. Why would people, if they're going to be assimilated, that seems contradictory to, like, identifying as being mixed. Oh, this water is so tantalizing right now. I have yet to say a blessing. I've just arrived, just returned. So that's the suggestion, a missionary work to convert mixed people into being mixed people. Because again, what we observe is that young people might wake up to it and have a little bit of freedom to talk about it, but once people get further mature in life, like, the shackles get put on, and every time somebody tries to venture out to be themselves, they get questioned for it. They get, like, scolded or ridiculed or scrutinized. Are you sure about that? Why are you doing that? Are you a militant now? Ha ha ha. Oh yeah, by the way, all right, we won't do that. So this is a normalization and a foundation of strength for kinfolk all around the world to be mixed in a genuine way, and in each one's own way, to have a literacy about what that is, and then also for there to be a specific culture, an omni mixed heritage culture, an omnilateral culture that is like a honing beacon. People can get into it as much as people want. People can flow out. People can come and go, but we have a homing beacon of mixedness that is omnilateral. We can't say it's like the absolute perfect amalgamation, but it's a natural way of being. Like, when there are a number of kinfolk who do have ancestry that's seriously from all the different continents, but when a community that comes from all the different cultures, what is the viable, practical, day in, day out, year in, year out culture and ways and customs for that people to be that way? That's what we are sharing. That's what we are cultivating. We've studied, we've learned, we've practiced, we've painfully toiled and struggled in finding this, and it's continually evolving, and we continue to add to the mix and adjust additionally, but we have the basics of it, and we're working to cultivate. Obviously, it's not an individual project. It's a collective project. It's an intergenerational project. So one of the basic, again, is ethics, foundation of how to behave and treat each other. It's further difficult in terms of living that way, but it's the easiest in terms of identity what's genuinely shared amongst our different traditions. This discipline, plain and simple. Panchaseelas is a very effective encapsulation of it: peace, sharing, chastity, honesty, and sobriety. And that makes it much boring, because a lot of what makes people are valued for today is being different, is being exotic, and is being the party, is being charismatic and not judgmental, and oh, have a drink, oh, have a smoke, and being comparatively loose in terms of diet and intoxications and otherwise, because that's the type of people who are further inclined towards socializing and treating normally somebody who's different. It's those people who are kind of lax in their discipline. That's not hate, but that's recognizing. However, as a community and endeavoring to stay oneself, it's very it's corrupting, and it takes power and take away. So it's beneficial to have and for that to be understood as non-judgmental towards anybody else. But Joe, we need to be this way so that we can hang out with y'all and we can kick in whatever else. But no, I can't do that. This is, instead of saying it's my religion, because one says one's religion, Then to what religion are you? And then boxes and history and xenophobic shibboleth and otherwise start to like manifest, or not just manifest, but just present itself. So when it says, "Yo, this is the world. This comes from different traditions, and but as a composite culture, this is the wisdom that is shared." So now that we can put it on that, we can put it on the world, and we don't not trying to convert. We're not trying to make anybody like us. This is what we have to do. This is not what we had to do. This is what we're guided to. That's what we're directed to do. Some can say it's what we have to do, um, to be ourselves. So we can put it on God. We can put it on the world. Um, we can put it on peace. Put it on peace. Put it on peace. So, anyways, that's part of what we're talking about, a culture. The sequence that I shared before in terms of like the beginning of the holiday season with the autumn, or excuse me, with the northern spring with the cherry blossoms, the Sakurai festival, all the way to the maple leaves in the autumn, particularly the sugar maple leaves, and then in the interim having the three sisters, the three brothers, and the three cousins, corn, black beans, and squash, rice, wheat, and yams, cucumbers, tomatoes, and onions. Having a specific festival for each of those that is traditional and legit and authentic, along the course from that spring to autumn, so that there's a natural connection. We've talked about clans before as well, and cultivating and strengthening this sense of interfamily cooperation through the clans, a matrilineal patriarchy, meaning that the identity, the affiliation of clan is through the mother, and the mothers have a role, the matriarchs and lead matriarchs have a role in relationships in the community across families, and additionally, the clans are identified by regions where the mothers come from. The mother's mother comes from, and that's how it's continued on. So there's that matrilineal significance and respect, intrinsically, balance of masculine and feminine. However, it's the patriarchy, it's the chiefs, the men, who are selected by the women, who make the decisions about economics and trade and security, and politics and otherwise, as a clan thing, and organizing it in the sense of the clan system of the much of the clan system of wisdom comes from Haudenosaunee, from the Gaya Nagoshawa, the great peacemaker Hiawatha, Diganawida, and Hiawatha. But a lot of the practical application of the clan system we are learning from Ojibwe and Anishinaabe, which involves smaller units that are further autonomous and self-determinate, but still cooperative and supportive of each other, particularly when need be. So it's a matter of establishing smaller enclaves of select families, those families working with each other, and then having a collective of families living together as village. And traditionally, the Ojibwe kinfolk, our Ojibwe kinfolk, are comparatively migrational, so are increasingly migrational. So there's this always flexibility, and that's intrinsic in how the clan system works. So it's applying that in a contemporary context and authentically and accountably, responsibly from tradition in our respective ancestries, to honor the lands and the cultures and peoples we come from, and then organize and guide ourselves in a prudent way, through political cooperation, economic cooperation, otherwise, through the advent of a clan system, traditional clan system. So that's part of the culture, and it takes work. It takes some practice and study and learning and coordination, but that's part of it. So we have rituals throughout the year that bring people together and break bread. Children have excitement when the cherry blossoms come through, and when the autumn leaves change, and additionally, and then throughout, there are different types of feels. Like I said, the rotten tomatoes joint, it's a fun, the rotten tomatoes that didn't make it through the harvest or otherwise on the market, instead of just throwing away or whatever. I mean, there are a number of different ways to do it, but it's a lighthearted when we have the opportunity for that. And that's my general understanding. That's my personal general understanding of the festival in Iberia, or Iberia slash the Mediterranean region. The new wheat harvest of Sukkot, not Sukkot, Shavuot, offering the first grains of the harvest to God, and having that mindfulness. There's again the sweet onions. There's the green corn. the squash and the gourds, and pumpkins, and additionally towards the autumn side as well, right as leaves are changing and thereabouts. There's the Iwaji festival, the new yams, African heritage, the Igbo in Nigeria particularly. So those are some of the examples of the traditional nature festivals with those particular produce from around the world. So as an aggregate culture, we have this on our calendars. And again, there are many other traditional observances that are of further weight and significance within our respective calendars. And so there's that flexibility. But at the very least, there's a literacy and a support for each of these. And the nature festivals is a comparatively accessible gathering premise for breaking bread, showing appreciation, and without requiring religious proclamations of religious faith, and similarly. So, I gotta put out some rice. All right, so that means wrap up. So that's part of the culture, and so it's a matter as a missionary thing, as a school, teaching that to mixed kinfolk, and when we say mixed kinfolk, this is multiculturalism too, and kinfolk who want this knowledge and want this literacy. It's available for any kinfolk who want it. We're not trying to convert anybody. We emphasize towards mixed people, and we personally from Asana Ashram and Sangha Yosef, we're coming from a Rastafari, and this Rastafari does not proselytize. Rastafari does not go out to convert. So this is not a matter of converting kinfolk to Rastafari. This is a matter of we are supported and founded specifically within Rastafari, and we're sharing a service for all kinfolk of the world, and particularly for mixed heritage kinfolk and anyone who has an affinity within multiculturalism, to have a greater world literacy, and we have a certain diplomacy within spirituality, particularly from the downpression that is experienced within the Rastafari trod, so that there's less of a history of ownership or whatever of others, or an obligation to be that way. It's a liberation spirituality, a liberation mysticism. So from that vantage, we are able to share one love without the premise, without the pretense, without the ulterior motive of converting anyone to any particular religiosity. So mixed kinfolk could be a mixed Muslim, and gain a world literacy, and continue to be a genuine, thoroughly, even enhanced practicing Muslim, and continue to identify as being mixed, participate in natural gatherings. We can consult with the imams about that, and whatever that person's vocation, engineering, medicine, law, teaching, sport, or whatever else, social work, can continue in that work in an enhanced and valuable way, and share that light, and share that love, and share that balance, share that patience with others, because that person is further solid in being that person, and conveys that energy and that vibe with other people accordingly. So that's the prospect, that's the suggestion concerning, I mean, it's basically what we've been talking about already with Academy Piety and otherwise, but just that notion of missionary work for mixed people to be mixed. And then the consideration is who can we encourage to support that, to put up some materiality. We try to stay away from money as much as possible, but what we're talking about is to ante up to secure some land, so that we have a village, a safe, secure, physical location to reside, to sleep, to pray, to meditate, to study, to dance, to convene our rituals, to teach, to learn, to study. How many times am I going to say study? To do yoga. Anyways, a physical place to do that. And then from that, we can invite people and have classes and teach accordingly. And then from that, we work on, and we negotiate and discuss the prospects from there. There may be opportunities and motives for establishing villages in other locations, or cultivating economic cooperatives or otherwise. So that's like next steps. My role is education. That's my emphasis. I have an administrative proclivity because I'm trained a long time ago to be in that way, and so I'm still called upon in many ways to do that. But my primary thing is reading books and then walking the streets to go to the store. All right. But that's what you gotta have a village and gotta go to the store. We grow it in house, so that's what we're looking at. And again, we do it from a Rastafari. That provides us with a spiritual strength and foundation, honesty, and resilience amidst all the challenges. So that when people are trying to like figure us out and saying who are we aligned with and who's this and the other, when people hear us say Rastafari, that's genuine. Now, Rastafari brethren and sister might say, nah, he's not. No, he's not. No, he's not. And there's always that. So and that's part of the nature of anything. So that's fine. But when people become further literate in Rastafari, then people recognize there is no gatekeeping in Rastafari. So that's that. And the genuine brethren and sisters will say that. They might say they might voice their concerns and their suspicions and scrutiny, whatever, and that's fair. Kinfolk have yet to reason with us, or many kinfolk have yet to reason with us about that. Some kinfolk have been very candid and direct in articulating that to us. And we've responded to that and respectfully, and so, but we're thoroughly on record and otherwise. The influence of woman is beyond man's control. The influence of woman is beyond man's control. So, cultivating concentration and calling upon the Most High and continuing. Talking about, I was saying something about calling us out and scrutiny and otherwise. I was going somewhere with that. We're talking about the missionary work as mixed heritage people, not converting anyone to anything but them who they are already. The propensities of prospects, the immediate circumstances. Again, encouraging kinfolk to put up. So who are we talking about in terms of like putting up the resources? To be honest, I mean, we're still within that conditioning of going to the big pockets and like having that trope of like at the very least the philanthropic kind of thing. But we're beyond the philanthropic trope. We are sovereignty at this point. Now, sovereigns can do these type of things, and we can talk about benevolent and pious sovereigns negotiating with sovereigns that have material matters in need to be connected and be in relationship with pious sovereigns and otherwise. That's legitimate, but it's still somewhat in the nascent stage of that top-down charity case kind of trope. So we have to be mindful of that. But there is a legitimacy within that type of negotiation. Each sovereignty has its own proclivities and brings something different to the table. So there's legitimacy within that. But we're being mindful of that because yet even in that scenario, and even when there's a certain amount of egalitarian and a proficient amount of respect, there has yet to be that. We're still looking for mixed kinfolk to ante up on this, and so rather than looking at homogenous people that may be very motivated and have a keen interest in supporting and investing or building like trade negotiation and having scholarships and arrangement for consultation from the services that we provide. There's amenability with that, and that's I mean, that's one of the avenues we look into, whether it's China, whether it's Scandinavia, Europe, the EU, whether it's kinfolk here in the United States, whether it's kinfolk in Africa or other locations, Asia, India, Japan, Singapore. I mean, that's a lot of places where the big coffers are, the big money kinfolk or whatever. But again, that's somewhat of that's a little bit of an obsolete trope in our respect. So then we look at, okay, we want to focus on people who have a much further vested immediate interest in the mixed heritage specifically. So there's the two kind of like roads that we look to specifically. One is looking at communities that are mixed heritage, Métis Nation, Singapore, again, Cape Coloreds, and as a community recognizing that there being some stability, intergenerational conscientiousness and proactiveness, and then within those communities, so where's the availability for investment? Again, simply at the initial stage, land, shelter, to have residents and provide a school. Simple with that, and build from there. Um, so who might there be? What institutions? What affluent kinfolk may there be in any one of these locations? Singapore would probably be further populated with that type of demographic, but then how motivated might some Singaporeans be with a Rastafari type of thing? Whether that can be further encouraged by some endorsement or some official patronage, even just in letter from hierarchies within Scandinavia, whatever, so that's not as controversial or stigmatized. Metis Nation might be rather proximate, but then again, maybe very sensitive to domestic politics, and additionally, whether it may be beneficial to secure again some endorsement from native tribal communities, whether it's Muskogee, Seminole, my heritage, whether it's Haudenosaunee, which is part of the vicinity traditionally where we are, Wyandotte and otherwise, whether that might be helpful in encouraging the Metis Nation to provide, and it's not a matter of provide, but invest or cooperate in the process of securing. And to be honest, it doesn't even have to cost anything. Talk to one of these municipalities, one of these counties, and work with a land bank that's already like available for a proper venture, and negotiate with the local governing municipalities, and have a transfer of the land. Whatever land we have to share it, or we have to provide it to a proper indigenous agency. So we don't own, we can't own anything. That's Asona Ashram and Sangha Yosef. We can't own anything in terms of land and titles and stuff like that. So we'd have to broker arrangements so that whatever title is provided from the current holder, it's either maintained if they're indigenous, and allows us to have up to a 50-year lease, or forward it through our arrangement or through our agreement to an indigenous entity of that land that holds it and allows us to reside on there for 50 years. So that's the basic framework of any land arrangement that we have. So it doesn't have to involve any money, but in the meanwhile, then there's additional building and renovations and retrofitting for renewable energy, off-grid utilities, and then materials and food and sustenance, and establishing agriculture. And if the agriculture is insufficient on its own to self-sustain the residents of that area, then establishing a methodology of barter and exchange. So that does further involve tendency to further resources. I'm not trying to do money. Silver, technology, communications is a big thing right now. So that's what we're focusing on as a priority. So, like I said, looking at communities, Metis, Singapore, even like traditional communities that are low key in Iberia, the Middle East, philanthropists. Well, all right, there's that. Then the other category is like prominent mixed heritage people, particularly celebrities. And one of the reasons for celebrities, the focus on that, is not a matter of like being, the actual thing is if involving or specifically including celebrities, being very low key about it. Not a lot of hype, not a lot of propaganda or publicity about it. Just being very low key, because we're trying to keep this thing very low key and radar, and less enveloped and like diluted in like the pop culture kind of experience. So the reason why we focus on celebrities particularly is because celebrities are not just people who tend to have further money, and that's actually a misnomer. They're people who have much further bank, and probably mixed people who have much further bank than many well-known celebrities. Many well-known celebrities also tend to have much, just as a general base, tend to have less purview or autonomy in deciding how that money is invested, because the advisors have a very strong hold and are trained for that, rather than celebrities being the talent in doing what the celebrities do. So the reasons for celebrities not for publicity, and it's not for the money per se. Money does have a factor into it somewhat, But the significant thing is, one, it's a people of standing and influence, because people, it's the network, it's the relationships that people have, not necessarily, yes, with other celebrities, but it's also with agents and knowing people, particularly in culture, music, and arts, and additionally, because, well, that's part of the immediate vocations and occupations that we're involved in terms of education, educational culture, music, and additionally. So it's along those lines. And then also, here's the big thing is that celebrities, people who are known as being mixed race, mixed heritage celebrities, are already supported in a significant way for being mixed. Um, and regardless of what the public scrutiny is and otherwise, they're on record for being mixed. They're not hiding as much as like many of the ordinary kinfolk. So even as adults, grown adults, and additionally, it's less of a fight to to uh, to just be that, because it's already on record. And not to negate that tendency of assimilation and the pressures of assimilation, but when a person is publicly on record and already supported in the public, amidst all the shade and everything else like that, that person is still mixed, and the support that the kinfolk have and the security that kinfolk have is done with an acknowledgement of that person being mixed. And there is a very subtle but significant, um, uh, that's a very subtle and significant factor, because when people are comparatively anonymous, like nondescript, no name nobodies or whatever, um, there's not that immediate acknowledgement and like acquiescence of like, okay, that person's mixed. We're not going to have to like pretend not, or otherwise, or try to passively aggressively take that person away from being who they are, or otherwise, and just involve this person in a game of a very subtle, tacit self-denial for the next 20 years, which is very much what the game is in convention, within particularly the higher echelon professions. It's a matter of just pretending, oh, I never knew. I wouldn't have guessed. They knew the whole time. Um, what's it? Corleone. Pretending they don't know, and in that feigned ignorance is just a matter of passively aggressively uh, discouraging that person for being who they are. And if that person articulates some semblance of their own culture, what's that? I have no idea what that is. That just sounds so strange. I don't know how comfortable I am with that. Are you sure about that? And it's like, oh. So that's serious deprivation right there. And celebrities tend to have to deal less with that. Once celebrities are already outed, it's like they can't play that game already, because then they look stupid. Like, you didn't know. Like, then who are you? Like, why are you here? Who else is there? Who else who take this place? Come on, don't play that game. Don't be. That's not even a game. That's just like a liability. You're ignorant. You don't know. You're trying to offer us services, legal services, financial services, advising, and you don't know. You're gonna no. It's not even a matter of respect. It's a matter of ignorance. You can't feign that ignorance when somebody is known for being that. So that's why we say celebrities have, generally speaking, a further leeway and sanction for being mixed, and can be open in supporting a mixed cause, even low key and otherwise. So that's what we look to, like communities, established communities, and seeing what kind of support we can garner, particularly in terms of negotiations with other agencies and administrations, and then individuals. And the interest in individuals is also involvement, just participating, learning oneself, involvement in the clan system, involvement in the culture. And also, to be honest, one thing we significantly are yearning for, and again, there are a lot of ambitions, there are a lot of needs, and there's only so much that can be done, particularly by so few numbers in one lifetime. So we recognize we're doing work that is intergenerational, just like what I continue to say with the Sikhi community. The Sikhi faith is established through a series of gurus, through 10 gurus over 100 years, over like 200 years. So this work is something that requires time, and that doesn't mean to be patient, or that doesn't mean to just like stall and hesitate and accept um, um, delays and otherwise, but just had to be recognized that it's not all done in just one lifetime and in one generation. So we look at the communities and we look at individuals for the investment. And the one thing that we also particularly are interested in, although it does, this is like somewhat of a next level type of thing. But what it is it is researching and finding the children of our legacies, the descendants of the people we honor and celebrate, and seeing where the descendants are now, and having like an honor council of the progeny of our legacies. And look out, like El Hajj Malik al-Shabazz, what happens to his family after he's assassinated? What happens to Betty Shabazz? What happens to his children, his daughters, years later, decades later? And additionally, how much does the black community support? As much as the black community, to this day, rightfully celebrates what he shares and what he sacrifices in his life, the pains he goes through just to be truthful to himself and recognize, yo, I was full of bullshit then. And even when I was knowledgeable and teaching people, I was still just learning. And I'm man enough to acknowledge that. And how does the black community reward him today? How do Muslims reward him? Not even reward him, but support him and his progeny today. Well, how do I do that today? That's what we're talking about. So the children of our legacies, the children of our legends walk today. How are they doing? How can we provide? What are the needs? What can they share? And that's the latter part. But what do we ask not what we can, ask not what our legends can do for us, but what can we do for our legends? How about that, JFK? So that's what's up. That's what's going on. That's what we talking about. Hallelujah. Amen. 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 Aha. All right. Singing and song, power, spirit. Hallelujah. All thanks and praise. So that's what we got to share. Sparrows, come on, let's feed the sparrows, y'all. Come on, let the sparrows eat. Let the sparrows eat. We're gonna feed the sparrows. So again, we give all thanks and praise to the Most High. Respect and honor to all our ancestors, prophets, and sages, past and present, known and unknown. Respect and honor to His Majesty Haile Selassie I and Her Majesty Waizara-Manen. Respect and honor to all our parents, all our forebears, all our elders. Respect and honor to all our relatives of creation, and respect and support to all our progeny, from the first 7 years to the next 7 generations, door by door. One heart, one mind, one love supreme. Blessed love and peace in Rastafari.